A child drowns in a hot tub. I'm your Osceola County community correspondent. It happened here in one of these homes behind this gated community. A very sad situation.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.
It's just after 3:30 a.m. on November 28, 2025, when the call comes into Osceola County paramedics, an unresponsive child, barely 20 months old, foaming at the mouth. A frantic mother, alone in a house she thought was safe, dials for help. By the time paramedics arrive, the damage is done. The toddler, who should have been sleeping peacefully, is now clinging to life in the most unforgiving of ways. The scene is too quiet, too calm. Yet, beneath this silence lies a horror no one could have predicted. How does a child, unable to swim, end up in a hot tub in the middle of the night? And what could possibly drive a father to make such a reckless, irreversible decision? It was supposed to be a getaway, an escape from the stresses of everyday life. A father and his family, vacationing in Kissimmee, Florida. A simple moment. But somewhere between sleep and intoxication, an innocent life was lost. A life cut short by neglect, by a decision made in the dark of night, a decision made under the cloud of alcohol and narcotics. As paramedics worked frantically to save a life, the questions began to surface. Was it too late for this family? Could the unthinkable have been prevented? And for Reynard Hoff, could there be any coming back from a mistake this monumental? What really happened on that night in Kissimmee? A child's life ended too soon, and a father's life will never be the same. This is the story of an innocent life lost, and the father whose recklessness made it all possible. Reynard Tyrone Hoff, once a devoted father, a man who held his daughter with love and pride, now sits in a cold interrogation room, behind bars. The life he once knew is gone, and in its place is a tragedy that will haunt him forever. A life lost, a family shattered, and a father's broken spirit. But what led him here? Reynard's story begins in Washington, D.C., where he worked a high-stress job, always chasing deadlines and trying to balance work and family life. He was a man who, on the outside, seemed to have it all: success, a loving family, a future to look forward to. But beneath that surface, Reynard was struggling. Personal demons that he couldn't escape, a growing distance from his wife, and a history with substance abuse that he tried, and often failed, to keep under control. In those quiet moments, when no one was looking, Reynard was fighting a battle within himself that no one could see. But as his career took off, so did his addiction. The stress of his high-powered job, coupled with the strain in his marriage, became too much for Reynard to handle. Alcohol, narcotics, they were his escape, a way to numb the relentless pressure of life. But every escape had a price. And that price was beginning to catch up with him. We spoke to experts in addiction and psychology to understand how this moment of recklessness could have come to be. Dr. Lisa Bennett, a behavioral psychologist, explains that substance abuse often clouds judgment, especially in high-stress situations. What Reynard was experiencing that night, she says, was the perfect storm. A combination of poor decision-making, emotional numbness, and a complete disregard for the consequences. When someone is under the influence, especially after using narcotics, their capacity for rational thought is severely diminished. They stop seeing the risks. What should have been a father protecting his daughter turned into a moment of deep negligence. Could Reynard have been the attentive, loving father his daughter needed that night if not for his vices? Could he have seen the danger, felt the weight of responsibility, had his mind not been clouded by alcohol and drugs? These are the questions that linger in the silence after the tragedy. At this point, the truth is clear: this wasn't an accident. This was a series of reckless choices made by a man who, for all his love for his daughter, had lost control of himself. A father, overwhelmed by his own demons, took a life that he was meant to protect. For Reynard, the consequences of that night are only just beginning. For the mother, the grief will never go away. And for the child, there will be no more tomorrows, no more laughter, no more moments in the sun. Only the cold, unrelenting silence of a life lost far too soon. In the end, it was a tragic end to a father's story, a story that was supposed to be one of love and protection. But instead, it will forever be a story of regret, of a man who could not outrun his mistakes, and of a family that will never be the same. It's in this moment of vulnerability, intoxicated and weary, that Reynard Hoff makes a decision that will haunt him forever. A father, who should have been focused on keeping his daughter safe, instead steps into the night, carrying her toward the hot tub, where she should never have been. At a time when she should have been asleep, safe in her bed, Reynard takes her outside to an environment that could only spell danger. He was no longer the attentive father, he was lost in his own battles, in a moment where recklessness blurred the lines between love and neglect. What was Reynard thinking in those moments? Was he trying to escape the weight of his responsibilities, the pressures of his life, his fractured marriage? Or, was he simply acting out of misguided love, hoping to bond with his daughter in a way that, in his foggy state, felt right? In a moment like this, where his mind was clouded by substances, the choice to bring his child into a dangerous environment may have seemed trivial, just another moment to steal for himself. But in that decision lay the seeds of tragedy. The human mind is fragile, especially when under the influence of alcohol and narcotics. What goes through a person's mind in that state? Experts in psychology often speak about the erosion of decision-making under the weight of substances. Reynard, clouded by intoxication, may not have been able to fully grasp the gravity of his actions. Was he consciously aware of the danger he was putting his daughter in? Or was he lost in the fog, convincing himself that this moment was just another way to escape? And in this moment, 20 minutes of silence, 20 minutes of unconsciousness, the unthinkable happens. Reynard falls asleep, the weight of his head sinking deeper into the back of the tub. He's unaware, completely consumed by his own inner battle, unaware of the danger just inches away. His daughter, unable to swim, is left in the water, her tiny body, completely vulnerable, held only by the man whose responsibility it was to keep her safe. As Reynard sleeps, the minutes tick away, unaware of the consequences. But in the background, a father's failure is unfolding. His daughter's limp body remains in his arms, drifting in the water. What seemed like a momentary lapse in judgment would soon reveal itself to be far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. The clock ticks toward 3 a.m. In just minutes, Reynard will wake up to a reality he cannot undo. His daughter will be lifeless in his arms, and the consequences of his negligence will echo in the halls of the justice system and in his own conscience for the rest of his life. This is where the line between father and failure becomes tragically clear. For roughly 20 minutes, Reynard slept, holding his daughter in his arms. A child who could not swim, in a hot tub that was far too dangerous for her to be in. No parent, no matter the circumstances, should fall asleep in a moment like this. Yet, Reynard did. His mind clouded, his decisions impaired by substances, he failed to recognize the gravity of what he had done. And in that moment of reckless neglect, it cost his daughter her life. As Reynard sleeps, the room is still. His daughter's small head, once nestled safely in his arms, begins to slip under the water. The faint ripples in the hot tub's surface are the only sign of movement, yet the true horror of the situation is just beginning. There's no struggle, no cry for help, no desperate attempt to escape. The water, calm and inviting, becomes the very thing that takes away the breath of a child. And then, it hits him. The cold, harsh realization that something is terribly wrong. He wakes to find his daughter's head dropped to the side, her body heavy and lifeless in his arms. His heart races. His mind, foggy from intoxication, now spins with panic and guilt. What did he feel in that moment? Was it the cold shock of guilt? A sudden panic, a wave of understanding that he had failed her? Or was it the dawning horror of realizing that everything he had known, everything he had taken for granted, had just shattered in the cruelest of ways? What was going through his mind in those final, harrowing moments? Did he understand the full scope of his failure? Or was it too late for him to make sense of it all? The harsh truth was now unavoidable. His daughter, who had trusted him with her life, was gone. And there was nothing he could do to take back those 20 minutes of sleep, those moments of reckless, irreversible neglect. When Reynard wakes, the reality of what's happened crashes into him like a tidal wave. His daughter is lifeless in his arms. But in his panic, he holds back the most important truth, the fact that she may have drowned in the hot tub. Why didn't Reynard mention the hot tub? Why didn't he immediately call for help when every second counted? The silence in that moment hangs heavily, leaving more questions than answers. Paramedics arrived within minutes of the call, but the damage had already been done. In less than an hour, the toddler was dead. A life that should have been full of potential, stolen by a reckless decision. A father's choice, made in a moment of impaired judgment, cost an innocent life. The consequences of that single mistake would echo throughout the lives of everyone involved. As the investigation began, the detectives turned their focus to the evidence. How did the events unfold that night? Was this a tragic accident, or was Reynard's failure a reflection of a deeper pattern of irresponsibility? The answers would lie in the pieces of the puzzle, the toxicology reports, the questioning, and the tragic details of the night that no one could undo. Reynard's confession raises more questions than answers. Was he truly unaware of the risks he took with his daughter? Did he realize the danger he placed her in, or was this a moment of genuine neglect, a moment where his addiction blinded him to the severity of his choices? His conflicting statements only deepened the mystery. The truth was hard to untangle, clouded by his substance use, by his own confusion, and by the crushing weight of his guilt. The toxicology report is clear: alcohol and narcotics had a firm grip on Reynard that night. But how much of this tragedy can be blamed on his impaired judgment? Was this a result of a single, reckless choice, or was it part of a much deeper issue? The real question becomes, what led Reynard to make the decision to take his daughter to the hot tub in the first place? As investigators delve deeper into Reynard's past, they uncover the patterns that may have led to this tragedy. Had these past demons clouded his judgment in that critical moment? Or was it the weight of a life filled with unresolved issues, his troubled marriage, his career stress, that led him down this destructive path? His history of addiction painted a disturbing portrait, one that suggested the possibility of a much deeper failure, a failure that stretched far beyond a single moment of recklessness. For Reynard, the questions never stopped coming. Could he have been a better father if not for the alcohol? If not for the drugs? Could he have been the man he once wanted to be? The man who held his daughter in his arms, protecting her from harm? The investigation was far from over, but already, the pieces of a broken life were coming together, each moment leading them closer to the truth. The case against Reynard Hoff becomes more than just a tragedy, it's a legal battle that will weigh heavily on his life. The charges, severe and damning, will follow him forever. But for the family, this is not just about a man in a courtroom, it's about a child lost, a mother's grief, and the impossible task of making sense of the devastation. For Reynard, the reckoning has only just begun. The family, torn apart by the loss, must now grapple with a future that feels uncertain and broken. The emotional toll on the family is unimaginable. The mother's grief is raw and deep, a pain that no parent should ever have to endure. She speaks through tears, explaining the unbearable weight of losing her child and the unimaginable betrayal by the man who should have protected her. But the anger and confusion are just as strong. How does a family heal after such a loss? How can they forgive a man who took the life of their loved one? As the case progresses, questions hang in the air. Will Reynard face justice for his actions? What will his sentence be, and will it be enough to undo the devastation he's caused? The questions remain unanswered for now, and the family must brace themselves for whatever comes next. But one thing is certain, the path to healing will be long, and it will not come without its own set of challenges. In the end, the damage is done. A child is dead, and a father is left to face the consequences of his reckless choices. A life that should have been full of promise was extinguished in an instant. But for the mother, the pain is unending. The void left by her daughter's absence cannot be filled, no matter the verdict in the courtroom. For Reynard, the weight of guilt will never leave him. The images of his daughter's lifeless body will haunt him every day, a constant reminder of the night he failed her. Was this just a moment of poor judgment, a single mistake that spiraled into tragedy? Or was there something deeper, something that led to a fateful night where a child paid the ultimate price for a father's reckless decisions? Could this have been prevented? Was Reynard's history of addiction, his inability to cope with his personal demons, the real cause of this heartbreaking loss? The questions linger, unanswered. And for the family, the future is uncertain. A life was lost, and no amount of guilt, punishment, or regret will ever bring her back. As the story of Reynard Hoff's negligence unfolds, each revelation feels more heartbreaking than the last. The choices he made that night, under the influence of alcohol and narcotics, led to a devastating loss, a loss that no one could ever have imagined in the quiet moments before the tragedy struck. The emotional journey is far from over for the family, and for Reynard, the weight of what he has done will follow him forever. This documentary has peeled back the layers of a man's life, showing the complexities of addiction, guilt, and responsibility. And in the end, we are left to reflect on the choices we make, and the impact they can have on the lives of those we love most.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.